Back making videos, bro. This is an interesting, almost deja vu moment for me because last year I had a very similar, almost identical outcome where I took a really long break and then, interestingly enough, came back on January 26th with a video called Where I've Been, dot, dot, dot. And in that video, I describe my hiatus, going on the Joe Rogan podcast, the other podcasts I did, what I was doing with my time off. And I was like, damn, I have clearly not planned well enough my year because the same reasons that I got backlogged last year are the same reasons I'm backlogged this year. And my hiatus this time was not so much a break necessarily. It was more catching up on months of emails, unfortunately. Accounting stuff, tedious back-end stuff, corporate infrastructure. A lot of it requires oversight and oftentimes gets put on the back burner when you're making content. And that is actually one of the things I want to really dial in over the next year. It's like really being able to, in what I deem to be a satisfactory way, achieve a cadence of regular content whilst not getting behind on emails, whilst overseeing companies and continuing product dev on Gorilla Mind and whatnot, while still getting my workouts in. Like, this year has been an interesting one because it's probably been the most I've ever prioritized. Like, I guess I can't say I've worked less hard in previous years because it's been just a grind for years now, but I definitely did put the companies over the content in some capacity. And in addition, in some ways, even my workouts, like this is the least I've worked out in the past year and I need to get back on it, dude. Like, this is a cadence of 4 times a week was typical for me, at minimum. And this year, there's been multiple times where I've fallen off the bandwagon. So that is one of my 23 obligations to myself, is to get back in there with regular workouts. When you actually break down how many hours it is in a week, it's really not a significant chunk of your time. It should be something that you're making time for. And one of the biggest errors I've seen entrepreneurs make that get very, very in the trenches of focusing entirely on success metrics is they will start to neglect their own health as they deem that next meeting or getting that, the 5 emails sitting there knocked out, or, fill in the blank fire they have to put out within, whatever organization. That stuff superseding your health shouldn't happen realistically. Like the gym, high quality sleep, diet should all be the infrastructure that cannot be compromised. And then the other stuff is layered on top. And is how it should work, and is what I'm going to get back to. Sometimes these end of year scenarios are kind of a reality check where you kind of reflect back on your year and you see kind of where there were holes and you kind of think of resolutions and things like that. I've never traditionally done like my New Year's resolution is fill in the blank, but I think having concrete goals set out for the year is important. And I think that for me, just achieving a balance that is sustainable and has a regular cadence of achieving what I deem to be satisfactory work quality across the board is something I am going to strive for this year. But as far as reflecting on my 2022, and I don't know, just like how it, just everything that happened, it was a lot of back-end infrastructure, trying to get a lot of things set up that, frankly, as you get deeper into entrepreneurship and whatnot, especially if you have fast growing companies, you start to identify there's work that can be done essentially in perpetuity, unfortunately. So it's almost just like, where do you draw the line at some point? So a lot of this year was grinding out meetings, doing a lot of back end stuff, and just setting the companies up for success moving into 2023, which is what I'm very much looking forward to seeing unfold in real time, because it was a successful year, but it was a bit of a slow year, I guess, in 22 for front-facing massive moves, so to speak. Like, we're looking at a very, very aggressive rollout of product development in Gorilla Mind, which I'm very excited for, because it's stuff that I've been impatient as hell to get out. And I've spent like all of 2022 working on, but I haven't been able to actually like physically get out yet. When Merrick is quickly expanding, it's going great. I feel like I'm saying the same thing as last year a little bit, but it is similar to last year. The growth has been amazing. A lot of it is, thanks to you guys as well for believing in the stuff I'm doing and supporting it and whatnot. And as the year progressed, I did actually take a vacation, which is notable. Something that I have typically neglected is taking personal time to do anything realistically. And I went to Europe with my girlfriend and spent a couple weeks we went to Dublin first in Ireland, and then we went to Rome in Italy, and then Paris, France. And one thing, I was considering making a video about this entirely, but The reason that I believe a lot of Europeans weigh less is a lot of people, they say the food quality is so much better in Italy, in France, etc. And this is typically coming from, I don't know, like this could be, just generalizing entirely. But for me, tourists, I often see say this. And what I've noticed is vegetables. Do you eat them or do you not? Because I fucking don't. That's why I have this. Just kidding. You should actually eat your vegetables. But alternatively, if you're like me and you don't want to spend the time buying them, when I was eating what would be objectively like shitty, eating like pizza, pasta, gelato, etc. all day, the amount of steps I was getting was so disproportionately high compared to me sitting in my office in Canada. It was like 25,000, 30,000 steps on some days with the amount of sightseeing we were doing, going around, literally walking essentially everywhere. Whereas here, I might have some days where like my step count is 10,000 is my goal, but oftentimes, like this past year mostly, I haven't been hitting that like I want to be. And that is gonna change in this year. It's one of my goals, like I said. But that in itself made it so much easier to stick to your weight goals and stay within like what would be considered a maintenance calories. Like you could eat essentially whatever you want within reason if you're decently muscled, have good nutrient partitioning, exercise with some regularity, and are getting a fuck ton of low intensity, steady state cardio in. Like it's pretty hard to gain excessive amounts of weight, especially when you're keeping yourself busy. The problem with working in a sedentary environment like an office is you have such ease of access to the fridge and the pantry and the whatever, and you're getting less steps in because your job doesn't require you to move around and whatnot. And it's basically just going to the gym for an hour, a handful of times a week, and your cardio if you actually dedicate blocks of time to it, but you're very infrequently actually actively exercising during your daily activities, just like subconsciously, so to speak, because it's just part of what you're doing. So that was one of the things I noticed for sure, is that I didn't need to go for like scheduled 10-minute walks or anything after eating. I was just like doing so much stuff that it would just happen on its own. And it wasn't just 10-minute walks, it was hours, several hours of walking. I got really lucky with the weather while I was there. I had like no ugly days, no nothing. It was on the tail end of summer too, so it wasn't as busy as would be typical. And it was really cool. It was a good experience. I'm glad I went. We really enjoyed ourselves. Ate a lot of awesome food. And I do think the food quality is probably better, actually, by the way. But I think that the actual caloric intake of what I was eating relative to the energy expenditure, like I would say that the steps were the main needle mover in me staying leaner during that trip. Like one of the things I've noticed too is people who get fat after high school, similar tangent, but oftentimes they think their metabolism has crashed, but in reality they're just sedentary now, whereas they used to do PE, they would play sports, they would walk everywhere. All of these things that